in Jesus Christ.
Amen ko para jungau try Jesus Christ.
When we are all sorrowful, what we all expect from our friends or our family or our relatives is a word of consolation. That is why we share our sorrow with them.
Apa ngi yomat ya kajing singau si ngi singau kwa ba ki parlok jungi bat ki bahai ngasem jungi kin ayangi ki ketin pan pentingan yangi ate nak ni kadau ngi thu lem haki ya ka ai ka ba mangi ngi singau.
When we share our sorrows, if people do not listen to us, if people do not understand us, we know we all feel that frustration.
Apa ngi ya thu ya la kajing singau si ha ki wei but kita kim priang lane kim le kumno ru ban keren pentingan yangi ngi singau kudlat habadon kumkata.
This was the experience of Jesus when he shared his passion and death and suffering. He predicted his passion, death and suffering, but then the disciples were not in a mood to listen to him or understand him.
Pakane de kebala jehau Jisu abau Jisu ulai tu haki sapang kajing syak sitom pada kajing yap ke baun sasya haki senran ki jong u rei maki pat kim syam lalong ki bala kloi ben priang ya kata kajing tu jong u.
That is what we find in today's gospel passage where the disciples are discussing on who is the greatest among them.
Pada kane akabang ya sngau ha gospel kebag menta ke singi ba kini ki senran ki jong u ki ya tainia hapreng jong ki mano na preng jong ki ulong ba kham krau.
Jesus had just shared with them that he will be handed over to chief priests and his enemies and he will suffer and die. But the disciples were discussing who is the greatest.
Jisu udang sudap ong haki udang sudap yatu haki ba mau unsasya lebeng ha ki Farisi haki start ain Andre kini ki senran ki apostol jung pade ki yania bat ki yakren penban capang menona pedeng juki ubalong ubakrau.
So we can imagine the frustration of Jesus.
De hang ni ngilak ban mudur hatukano u Jisu u sengau lengkum jengmut.
We might even question the behavior of the disciples now.
Se mata ngilak ban kili balai ki ni ki senran ki jong u Jisu ki lek kum ni.
But if we have a thorough introspection of our lives, we know it is our own character, it is our own behavior that we see displayed in these disciples.
Aba ngi pejpinia ba ngi duriap ya kini ki kentien ki ba thoi pangan ki jingle jong kini ki senran jong Jisu ila ban siam ba kini ki longru ki jinglong ki jongi.
In all of us there is a longing for power, prestige and a desire to be great.
Baro mangi ngidon ya kene ki jing terang ban long ki ba paunam ki don bor pat ki ba don kaburam khamat jong ki wei.
But we know Jesus invites us all to a life of service, not to a life of power or prestige.
Rei u Jisu bade wan pat pen I ban don ya ke jing im ban long ki ba Shakri ba ki ba penret khamat jong ki wei.
In the Gospel of Luke we find there is no room for power and position for his disciples.
Ha gospel jong Lukas ni semba Jisu pen I ba nom don kano kaban yo ya kaburam na kabanta jong ki senran ki jong u.
Then you might wonder and ask why there is a hierarchy in the church. If there is no room for power and positions, why there is a hierarchy in the church?
De la se mata phila ban kili lada om dei ban don kabor te balai pat ha kabalang pade ki don ki kerdan ki ba de nadu ki nong senchar ki nong pe be ki nong sarai balai pat don haba lada ong ba de ban don tang kerkom ban Shakri om de ban don ki ba hebor.
Originally, the idea of hierarchy was for service. Only it became titles of honor in the course of time.
Andre hai jing sya kene ke jing don jong ki kerdan ba per ka balang grei na ka panta ban Shakri. Andre kat na ya ki porpat kini ki kerdan ki klalong ki kerdan ban don bor.
We address the Holy Father by different titles.
Ni ai nam ya u pa bu khoi da ki kerteng ki ba per.
We call him Pope, we call him Supreme Pontiff.
Ni ong ya u pop ban ni ong ru ya u nong sensar ba kli du jong ka
But
balang.
the meaning of all these titles is the same, that he is the servant of all servants.
Ka jeng mut jong kini ki kerteng ka dei ka ju ka ba mut ba ulong u Shakri jong ki Shakri.
That's why when a pope officially signs a document, in the signature is actually the servant of servants.
Ba kane kedai ke ba pen pau ru apa ni pule ia ki jing tho ba u pa bu ko yu tho ha ka ba kut jong ki jing tho jong u ni ju sem ha ka ba u la sain bu tho u Shakri jong ki Shakri.
At times we wonder why cardinals and bishops wear red vestments. In their vestment there is a red portion. Sometimes we imagine that is standing for honor and power.
Teng ngi i ru ha ka jing riam jong ki cardinal ngi ba ki don ki khot jan ba ma ki riam ra ka ba rong sao te teng ni la berkat ba kini kide kidak jong kaburom pat kabor jong ki.
But the red color that we see on the vestment of bishops show that they are in the forefront of the people ready to suffer martyrdom for Christ.
Re ka jing mut jong ka jing deng jong ki ya kini ki jan barit ki ba ki deng ha ka jing phong jan jong ki bishop ki cardinal ka theo ba ma ki don ha ka jaka ka ba khamadu ban long ki para khre na ka panta ka jing sha sitom ban sakhi.
So the disciples to which Jesus calls each one of us is one of humility and of service, not of pride and of greatness.
Pada kani ka jing ai jing putha jong Jisu ban long kinuksa jong ka jing sngoret om ban long ki ba sngokrao.
So if we go through the Bible, we find number of instances where people desire to be great and they fell short of the grace of God.
Agi benta pa per jong ka Bible ngi i bagi tu ki breu ki ba yale pan penlong krau yala de hendrei ki tu pade ki du no ya ka jing ai ka jong ublei.
You know, Satan was an angel once upon a time who desired to become like God. Because of his desire, he fell from grace and became devil.
But ni tip ba hakawai ka por u Satan u lalong rangka ba ublei rei hakajing angnut jung jing trang jung jing kwa jung ban long kum ublei but nakata ka jing le ka jung u lahap but u la klalong u suj ba Satan.
The first parents, they wanted to be as knowledgeable as God, and so they lost the paradise.
But ki kimi ki pa ki pani kong jung iru ki la kwa bandon ka jing tip ku bandon ublei but de na ka daw ya ki la weng no na paradise.
But on the other hand, we find others who showed extreme humility became favorable in the sight of God.
But Henry ki don kitu ki wei pat ki ba long ki pa penret bah yala de hendak kamat jung ublei but Henry ublei ula kentiu yaki.
Joseph, when he was sold in slavery, he accepted that in humility, and he was made the greatest of all pharaohs in Egypt.
U Joseph ya ula sya di Henry undala ula poi hapo Egypt ya la penlong unong pej unong kemi upahalor du ha ri Egypt.
Job was summoned. Job, who is mentioned in today's first reading, was summoned with lots of riches.
U Job ru kumain la singaw jeng pulai ke kong de breu ula don bon ka spa.
The Satan wanted to test him.
But u Satan ula kwa ban tenju ya u.
God allowed him to test him, provided he doesn't harm his soul.
But u blay ula ailat ya u suj ban tenju ya u Job Henry siam lasai u ban penduk ya ke jing im ke jong u.
Job was deprived of all his riches, all his property, honor, position, everything.
U job ula du lot ya bar khoi ki jing don ki jing em ki jong u.
But he did not give up on God. He continued to trust in Him even in his misery.
Andrei siam la ino ya blei andrei bat ula ya peteng ya ke jing senia jong u.
What about us? If we lose everything in life, will we still trust in God?
Andrei kumno pade yang ni. Lada ngi du lot ya bar khoi ki jing don ki jing em ki jong i hato ngina ya peteng ban senia hau blei.
Christianity is all about losing everything for Jesus.
Ka jinglong Kristan kalong bangin du lot yak borok khait na kapantau Jisu.
Today in gospel passage we see Peter and his group, they are discussing on who is the greatest.
Haga gospel ba matakasi ngila yasngau kumno ki senran kila yania but kila yakren ba mano balong ba kham crowd.
Peter must have said, I am the greatest because I am the one responsible for the great multiplication of 5 loaves and 2 fish.
Petrus lese ulabon ong ba nga de uba crowd namar ba de namar jonga ba ya kejing penroi ya kidok kha la jia.
John must have said, I am the greatest because I am loved by Jesus more than all of you.
Yohanes lese unjen dal ong ba de manga kenyu ba kham crowd namar ba na pleng chu phi bor khoi de yanga ba Jisu i je.
So in a way, they were not behaving themselves like saints today. They were not behaving themselves well up to the expectation of a disciple.
But they nakane I hangne ba ki ne ki senran chu nim siam la le ya kata ka ba lakmi naki bakin long.
That's why Jesus teaches them the valuable lesson that discipleship is all about humility. It is all about service by putting up a child in front of them.
But they nakane kata u Jisu lo hikai ki wangin long ki basngewrit bata ka ba u bu ya ukna hakamat jongki.
Think of some of the great people in history like Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela.
People kat ya ki beriu ki ba crowd haka history kama Mother Teresa but u Nelson Mandela.
They all became great not by showing something about themselves, rather in their humility, in their service-mindedness, they became great.
But kini ki laklalong ki ba crowd day ba kilale ki ba pen crowd ni la day ba kilong ki ba crowd andre ki klalong kumta ki ba crowd nomar ba ki le ki ba red ki baria.
So today Jesus is inviting all of us to develop this virtue called humility.
Te hakan ke sngi la khat la wer yangi ba khoi bangin penroi ya kan ke jinglong jong ke jing sngurit.
To become service-minded in our approach as disciples.
Ban long haka jimut sing perkhat jongi kumno ban Shakri.
Let us place the needs of others before us.
Dengan bu ya ke jing don kam jong ki wei haswai ya ke jing don kam la te.
Let us practice patience when we are called upon to do it.
Dengan long ki ba ya sha haba la khat angi ban le.
Because humility is the right way of discipleship which Jesus appreciates from each one of us.
Amar ke jing long pas ngeurit ke de ke jing long ke ba u Jisu u nyokor haba ngi buat ya u.
In this Holy Eucharist, let's pray for this gift of humility in our life of discipleship.
Hakane ka Eucharist bukoi to ngin pan ke jing ban long ki pas ngeurit haba ngi long ki senran.